Welcome everybody to iAfrica Media, the biggest media platform for all things eye care on the African continent. I'm your host, Obi Malope, all the way from the motherland, South Africa. It's a beautiful day today here in Johannesburg specifically, and I have the awesome privilege and the opportunity to be hanging out with one of my heroes in the eye care industry. I've never said this to her before, but what she has meant for me personally within my career has been, there are no words to describe the impact that this particular leader that you're about to see on your screen has had on my life within eye care. And so it is a privilege to introduce to you today, for the second time on iAfrica Media, Dr. Diane van Staden. How are you today?
Good morning, Obi. I'm doing very well today. It's also a lovely day in Durban. We're blessed with beautiful, well, autumn weather. We're moving into winter, but yeah, so I'm doing fantastic. Thank you.
Wow, wow, wow. Dr. van Staden, there are not a lot of optometrists in South Africa, particularly, who have the title of doctor. Mm-hmm. For those who have always been interested in hearing your journey and your story, how did you become a doctor in optometry? What was the process or journey that you had to follow?
Sure. Thanks, Obi, for the opportunity once again to share a bit of my story. So, as many people will know, in South Africa, optometry is a 4-year bachelor's qualification. So I graduated with my bachelor's of optometry. And at that time, I had no inclination or aspirations to pursue, studies beyond a bachelor's qualification. I went into clinical practice, and my heart called me to public health and development. And it's through my work in public health and development, I saw the opportunity then to upscale my qualification. At the time, I was very interested in a master's in public health because I wanted to understand more about public health and how we could bring optometry into that space. Because I had moved provinces from KwaZulu-Natal, where I'm now based, which is my home province, to the Free State, which is where I met you as a student, I had to suspend my studies in my master's in public health. I was only registered for 1 semester. And while in Bloemfontein, I picked up on a master's in public management or public administration, which was the closest I could get to still staying within sort of public service management, if I could call it that. I saw myself as someone who would play an influential leadership role in changing the face and shape of how optometry is practiced in South Africa. And so I did my master's. And after my master's, many people will tell you they are traumatized. Their first postgraduate degree. And I said to myself, as many people do, never again. I will not torture myself. I have no aspirations to go beyond that point. And so I was quite happy. I was doing the work that I loved. And while working for the International Center for Eye Care Education, we had gotten a development grant from Irish Aid, which is the Irish government's development funding arm, to implement an optometry training program in Mozambique. And part of the conditions of the grant was to deliver 5 PhDs from Mozambican candidates to then grow academic optometry in this country, which was new, it was brand new. But we struggled to find, of course, there were no optometrists in Mozambique to start off with. How do you find a PhD candidate? Many of the Mozambican nationals who wanted to study further went to Spain or Portugal or Brazil, which is because of the linguistic links to those countries. And so because we battled to, within the first 2 years, find Mozambicans, we opened it up to people who were affiliated to the project and said, well, at least our director did, Professor Naidu at the time, and said, look, we've got this money, we need to spend it, we need to make good on it. And I was offered one of the opportunities to do a PhD. And at the time I was single, and I thought, you know what, this has been handed to me. It was a fully paid scholarship. It's been handed to me on a silver platter. I have no reason to refuse, even though, a couple of years prior after my master's, I said, never again. And so I registered for a doctoral degree at Dublin Institute of Technology in Ireland. And that took me somewhat 5 to 6 years to complete. And that's how I earned the title of doctor. I completed a Doctor of Philosophy in Optometry with a focus on development partnerships. So yeah, for South African qualified optometrists, you would have to either go the route of master's and then PhD to earn the title of doctor, or alternately to go and study, almost restudy in a country like the USA, or our counterparts in Nigeria and Ghana who have 6-year programs that then earn the title of doctor.
Wow, wow. It's been, you know, so inspirational watching your journey, simply because when you got to the University of the Free State Optometry Department, it was still in the early days, and you were part of the academic team that was responsible for growing that department. And so now seeing you, and when you came in, you were merely Diane Wallace, and to now see your journey within the academic side of things unfolding right before our eyes, it's really been remarkable, and it has inspired us. And you're still in the academic environment with University of UKZN Optometry School. And
Yes.
one thing that I've picked up over the last 4 years with the optometry school at UKZN is how actively involved the students are with regards what's happening in eye care beyond the optometry school. And I was always asking myself, why is it specifically that these students in UKZN are different from the other university students? And one thing that I came up as an answer was that because the academics themselves are different. They are not just seeing themselves as academics. And
absolutely.
Why do you, was that a planned response or reaction from the academic team that you guys had, where you find yourselves, even though you are doctors, professors, and you're in this academic environment, but you're finding yourselves active on social media, attending non-academic events, getting involved in non-academic activities within the eye care industry? Was that planned, or is it something that you have found yourself navigating your way through as time has gone by?
So just to say that I never considered myself to be an academic. I never considered a career in academia. I think even going to the University of the Free State, I was a relatively young optometrist with fire in my belly to make a difference. And if I think back over the course of my career, I always wanted to be someone who made a difference to the profession of optometry. Somehow it was always the underlying philosophy that inspired my moves and my career decisions, and what I got involved in is how can I inspire this profession to be better. I recognized very early on that my role was beyond clinical. I lived clinical practice short of 4 years,
Oh,
and I sought opportunities to influence the development of the profession in different ways. So, as you said, like my role was at the University of the Free State was developing that program. And it was one of the first programs actually that stamped its footprint in the public health sector, which was where my heart was, within the health system. And I was able to do that. I remember very clearly setting up clinics at Bongani Hospital, driving to small primary care clinics in Sienakal and Vicksburg, and delivering care there and training nurses and empowering local communities. And that's where my heart was at the time. Subsequent to that, I was headhunted back to KZN by my mentor, Professor Kova Naidu. At the time, the International Center for Eye Care Education was growing, expanding its footprint globally, and they needed more hands and like-minded people to get involved. And I must say, it was a difficult decision to leave the University of the Free State because I felt that I was making an impact. I was just settling. I was just there for 2 years. but at the same time, this call to make a global impact beyond just South Africa, beyond just the Free State, I couldn't resist the opportunity. I thought, worst case scenario, it will give me exposure on a different level. So I came back to development work. And through that work, as I said, we established optometry programs in other countries and um, did lots of innovative things. And I loved my work there. But I was very conscious of the fact that, in the NGO environment is unstable in terms of its funding dependence, etc. And I was moving to the phase of my life where I wanted to settle down, get married, start a family, and I started to think of stability. And honestly, that is the only reason I left my work um, at the IC at the time. We called it IC, now the Brian Alden Vision Institute, to go to UKZN, because really it was like, okay, university is a secure environment. Let me go and see what difference I can make. And for the first 2 years, I was very, I can't say depressed. I've never been depressed, so I don't speak that over my life. But I felt like I don't belong here, fish out of water, because I came into this environment where it was just about academia. Staff and students had no concept of what happens outside of that environment in IK. And I had this big world view. And so I battled as to how do I bring this into the program? And so to appease myself with the decision I made to move to the university, I said, right, I'm going to make it my mission to influence change, to change the mindset, to show them that there's more to eye care, there's more to optometry, there's a different world. And then that became my mandate that inspired me. So I brought my worldview into the academic space and my public health background into the academic space, and started inspiring staff and students around how we could grow our profiles, without just thinking about we're training students to get bachelors of optometry and to go work in practices. And so that's almost inadvertently how it happened. I guess I had come to the realization what my role was or needed to be in the academic institution. And I've continued to drive that form of change in mindset about what optometry is. That it's multifaceted. We have so much broader role to play in society. Yeah, so.
Wow, 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 wow. Something very interesting happened beginning of last year, just before this pandemic took the world by storm. An individual decided to take the industry by storm here in the southern parts of the continent. And I realized that there was this company, ESY, that started coming up on the radar on our social media pages. And they just had a fresh approach, fresh take, fresh perspective on what is there pertaining to eye care outside of the test room. And I was watching it, and to my surprise, the person and the brains behind this company was a doctor from UKZN by the name of Dr. van Staden. Please give us a breakdown of what is ESY, as well as your other company, Dioptic. How did that come about? And how did you even have the audacity, if I can put it that way, to launch brand new companies in the midst of a pandemic? And how did that come about?
Sure. I would say in short, it comes, if I said it in one word, it's purpose. I have never been interested in business. Let me say that. I don't consider myself to be an entrepreneur. I'm a creative thinker. I always think of it. I see the big picture. I see ideas. I see opportunities. And I recognize that as one of my strengths. And as I've grown and matured as a professional, I play to my strengths. And I also know that I'm not the one, while I can have great ideas, I can't always implement them. And it's certainly not up to me to implement them all on my own. So I know my strengths and my weaknesses, and I try to find a healthy balance. But where does SE come from? So I call it SE. Um, over the course of my time in academia, I'm at UKZN now for 10 years. I started in 2011, so yes, it's 10 years.
Wow,
When I
congratulations on that.
Thank you. So when I got to the institution, as I said, the first year or two, apart from me feeling like a fish out of water, another thing that made me feel somewhat disillusioned about being there was this weight of negativity, weight of dismay, among staff and students about this profession of optometry and the future of the profession and the value of the profession. It's like, you know, the majority of students were dragging their heels, didn't want to be there, felt that there's no future for optometry. And a lot of the staff at the time kind of, whether directly or indirectly, kind of reinforced those sentiments and perceptions. Um, and it's kind of like doom and gloom. So why are we here, And that bothered me because I was coming from a vibrant, exciting, there's so much for us to do. This is certainly not a dying profession. If anything, on the global stage, optometry is a growing profession. So that
Absolutely.
I was conflicted by that. And we would have these staff room discussions or lunchroom discussions from time to time when we had cases of students, like we've had cases of students who in third year have dropped out of program. Good students, not because they're failing academically, but because, again, they just don't feel inspired. They don't see a future for themselves here. And we would say, what can we do to help students to love this profession, to own the profession, to be excited about optometry? And these would just end in the lunchroom. And, and then all students would graduate, practice for 1 year, and go off to do something else. And there'll always be people who will do that. So SE was started really as I guess my passion project to inspire optometry students and practitioners in South Africa to love what they do, to build a sense of community around our value as eye care practitioners. That, I also saw a lot of division in the industry, you know, groups and practitioners and competition, and it's not about that. There's so much of work for each of us to do. There's enough
Absolutely.
for all of us to do. And so I'd sort of seen other brands and how they build community and build this movement through themed merchandise. And so I thought, well, we don't have that in South Africa. Funny enough, I went to, as part of the students, Specsavers used to sponsor InterVarsity debates. And then we went to their head office in PE 2 years ago. And I happened to be wearing a spectacle shirt, a
Yeah,
blouse that I had found just almost, I would say randomly, but I don't believe it was a coincidence. And when I went there, they had matching wallpaper and matching cushions. And I thought, this is awesome. Okay, if we could do something like this and have spectacle or eye themed products that optometrists can use in their homes, in their practices, wear on weekends, whatever, and they become advocates for optometry. They represent their pride in the profession. I'm proud to be an optometrist. I play an important role in society. I love what I do. That in itself is a message. And then also building the sense of community that we are the Vision Squad. That's why we started with the Vision Squad as sort of the flagship T-shirts, that all
yes.
of us are in this together. We're fighting blindness. We helping people to see. And that's why those are the messages that I put in my hashtags, that this is what it's about. So apart from being, it really was not started for economic reasons, let me say, and it's only God that it was started in a pandemic, and that the industry responded so well to the concept. And so I know that I've touched on something that is a need, that is definitely was at the right time brought to the market. Um, My challenge is because it started almost as my pet project and I still have a full-time role at the university, is juggling those two things. How do I give enough time to growing this movement, to expanding our sphere of influence, because that's what it is about, influencing the eye care community locally, to be passionate and love what all the things that bugged me as an academic, all the things we used to talk about in the staff rooms, to change those things, that our students come in with an energy and a fire and they want to grow this profession. So that's where SE started. It's spelled ESY for eyes, see, you. We test eyes, we help people to see, and through the branded merch or the themed merch, it's an expression of who we are as professionals, our professional identity. So that's where the name was also born.
Wow.
Dioptic was started because one of the things I love doing is writing. It's another one of my strengths. I love writing, and I love can I say, challenging the status quo in a sense, and being a thought leader, change maker in the industry. And I
Yes.
thought, how can I bring communication solutions that are focused on the eye care industry, using my strength and my expertise that I've gained over the years as an academic and as a researcher, and bring it, almost marry that with industry needs. And how do we sell this message, whether it's a eye health message, whether it's a product message, how do we present it to the target audience in the best possible way? So that's where Dioptic was born. It's just what I feel, the value I have to add or to give to the industry beyond my primary role, I guess, as an academic.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. You touched on a very, very important aspect when you were explaining how you ended up getting into this, and it was a sense of community.
Mm-hmm.
And with community, it means that you're bringing people together. And what I see, or what we as African media see with your two brands, is you breaking across that racial differences, that experience differences, because it's as if how you have put your brand within the market is bridging that gap between those who have been in the industry for a very long time and have become sort of like demotivated with seeing what else is there in the industry. But you are also connecting the young crop of leaders who are going to take the industry further than where the industry
Absolutely.
is right now. How did you go about doing that? Or was it an organic sort of like flow of the two
Yes.
being able to come together? Because it's beyond KZN, you know, beyond. People want to be part of your brand. People want, they don't see it, in actual fact, they don't see it as your brand. They see it as their brand.
Their brand, absolutely.
So
And
how
and
did you
that's what I want. And so to answer your question, it was organic. It wasn't necessarily intended that way. And just in the past month, I would say recently, as I said, I realized very early on that I cannot do this on my own. It's a mandate that's been given to me. I said, as I said, a purpose driven mandate, I believe, for the industry, and a platform I can influence the industry in a different dimension. But for it to really have full impact, I need to bring along the journey with me the ones I most want to influence, who's the optometrists in training or the new graduates who are the future of the profession. So I actually have a cohort of students that I'm working with and new graduates. And and the reason I've brought them on board, I actually just put out a generic call. I said, calling all creatives. I put a picture of a frame, a spectacle frame, and I said, do you have a creative interest in digital design, photography, whatever it is? Because that, again, came from a gap that I saw. These lunchtime discussions in the academic staff room. It's
Yes.
a, in fourth year or a new graduate, so and so was so good at this, and we didn't know that this person could sing, or that person does art, and that person does photography. And we would see it as a lost opportunity because we had them for
Wow.
4 years and we didn't tap into the other side of these students, the gifts, talents, and find a way to bring it into the optometry space. And perhaps just by doing that alone, they feel inspired about the profession. So now I've got students who are interested in photography, in fashion and beauty, in digital media, and each of them are now finding a role to play, as you say, in this brand that is now their brand. They're going to own the movement.
I like
Um,
that.
and I'm going to use their ideas because they are the I'm from a different generation. You know, they need to influence their generation with what is relevant, the messages that are relevant and will speak to fellow students or young optometrists. I mean, I'll obviously bring in my experience and my background from a mature perspective to speak to the more mature optometrists, but I believe that the potential lies in this cohort of students that are now going to take the profession forward. And so, yeah, they're busy brainstorming, working on projects, how they can build this movement, because that's what I said to them. It's up to you now. How we've spoken to students at the University of Johannesburg, University of Limpopo, so we're taking it beyond KZN and growing the movement even within those institutions. So, yeah, it's
Wow.
about
Wow.
influencing change, influencing positivity, and opening people's eyes to the possibilities that exist within the profession and within our sector.
Wow. Now, here's the thing then. It would have started as not uh, for economic reasons, but at the end of the day,
Mm-hmm.
when it starts to grow, then you obviously at one stage realize that, wait a minute, we are now in the marketplace because
Yes.
you've got products, people are buying things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there comes the issue of stock on hand, demands. Now
Oh,
you're dealing with optometrists who are now placing demands. Expectations now are set because you created those expectations.
yes.
And now, and that's why the title of this interview today is From the Classroom to the Marketplace. What are some of the challenges that what are some of the challenges that you have encountered in now having a full-time job, being a mom, being a wife, and still playing an active role in the academic development of optometry on whether
Yes.
it's at the academic institution or in the continent, where what are some of the challenges in dealing or handling your business? And now
Sure.
the entrepreneurship side has to kick in now. All of
Yes,
that now has
absolutely.
to come about. What are some of those challenges that you had to sort of like encounter in your first year of operations, if I can put it that
Yeah.
way?
Spot on. I mean, you're absolutely right. Because as I said, this kind of started, yes, it started as a little business because that's how I could just package it and present it to the world. But it was my little pet project, my feel good. I'm excited about it, I'm making other people excited. And I didn't initially see it as something that's going to turn into this economic marketplace. So yeah,
Yes,
I'm facing the challenges now. My first challenge is obviously time because of the various roles that I have to play, um, as you've articulated. So finding enough time to dedicate to it. I work from home. I've managed everything from home. I don't have a full-time person working with me. I outsource certain things, but it's just managing the inquiries, managing the deliveries, managing the stock on hand. If somebody asks me for, let's say, a T-shirt in a certain size, and I don't have that size, then I almost feel like I'm letting them down, and I want to go out of my way to do that. Um, or overstocking on things and then not having enough time to market all of this stuff. So these are things I never even learned because, as I said, it was never in my plan to run an e-commerce business. So I'm learning on the go. I'm having to learn, and I've reached out to, you probably know, the lady from I Love Design, the US, Ashley, I think she is. She's a US optometrist who does similar sort of themed optometry teas. And so I reached out to her. I'm like, how do you decide, like, what people will like, what sort of quantities you need to print? And I'm
yes,
doing this out of pocket because it's my passion. I haven't counted the rands. I certainly haven't done that, but I've spent a heck of a lot of money that I can tell you. Uh, so yes, at some point I do need to start recovering what I've invested and start seeing it as a business and not as, a feel good project. And I'm at that stage now, which is why I've started to bring people on board to start assisting and putting systems and processes. I'm at the point where I have to put systems and processes. Um, we're having some technical glitches with the website. I had one I was not happy with. I've had one that's in design now, and they were just having some final glitches with the e-commerce aspect of it. So I was hoping that by the beginning of May that would be up and running, because then it would be easier for people to transact, with the business, to see all the products that we have. And so it's doing bits and pieces and trying to keep your finger on what's important so you don't miss the pace or you don't lose potential customers who may be interested. So
Yes.
yeah, I am facing that challenge, but I'm also seeing it as an opportunity to grow personally, but also to give others an opportunity to grow and empowering students to have a role in the process. So that
Wow.
hopefully they can also see how they can do other things outside of just clinical practice if that's what they choose to do. Yes.
One thing that I wanted to ask you, and all the best with that, by the way, before I ask you the next question,
Thank
all the best. I think it's an exciting period. And one of the things that personally, from my experience, is I was never a business person myself. Things have just happened as you go along. And I
you.
realized that systems, if you put the right systems in place in the beginning, it makes the journey a whole lot better.
Yeah.
Uh, so it's good that you're already at that stage where you already identified that I need to put these systems or these people in place and these processes to make
Mm.
your operations more efficient. So that's absolutely fantastic. What I wanted to find out from you is something that I observed from you, which you have managed to do very well, is you did not build the brand around yourself. You built the brand as an independent body on its own. Whereas the challenge that I had in my entrepreneurial journey,
Yes.
the business or the brand that I was building was tied up to me. And
Absolutely.
it took me forever to be able to get out of that uh, sort of like uh, process. But what I've noticed with you, you have built AC and Dioptic independently of you. So when someone thinks of those companies or brands, they're not necessarily thinking of you because you have done a phenomenal job in structuring it around the community, structuring it around the young people, and how easy was that to do, or how difficult was that to do?
Um, I think it was I can't say it was relatively easy. It was a challenge because I was going out with this brand with my name and face. Well, initially I didn't reveal who was behind the brand.
Yes,
I just started creating traction around what the brand stands for, what it hopes to do, etc. But at some point, I needed to reveal the face behind the brand and the message behind the brand so that people, there's some almost credibility. I would
absolutely.
like to think that my profile adds credibility, that people know what I stand for in terms of my values, what I've done in my career or, over the course of the years. But I definitely did not want to keep myself central to that. Even at this point, while the business is still in its infancy stage, I recognize that I may not lead this business in the next 3 years, 5 years. There may come a time in the near future where I hand the baton over, whether it's to one of my brand ambassadors, somebody else who shares the same vision, shares the same interest. This may not be something tied to me for the rest of my
Yes,
life. So it must be about the purpose and not be
like that.
about me and my little business. What does this business stand for? What does it want to do? So any other individual with a like-minded passion and skill can then run with it. If I choose to at some point separate myself from the business, then it doesn't fall flat.
Wow, wow, and that is absolutely phenomenal. And you obviously have utilized social media because if I look at 3 years 3 years ago, any product launch, you would tie it up with a conference, industry event, and it will create the perfect platform for you to be able to introduce your product or your company. But you did it in the midst of a pandemic using social media. How has that played a role within your brand growth, if I can put it that way?
Sure, it's been phenomenal. Firstly, yeah, the pandemic was good in so many ways. While it was bad, it was also good in a lot of
Absolutely,
ways.
absolutely.
um, okay, I've been on Facebook for years, as many people have been, because it's one of the first sort of social media platforms we all got tied to. So, but
Yes.
Instagram was relatively new to me. So early on in the pandemic, I started exploring Instagram, and wow, there's this whole new world, and this is how you can connect to people, and it's so creative. And so I started learning about Instagram only in the pandemic and realized that while Facebook is there, Instagram tops it in terms of how you can gain exposure, the kinds of things you can do, the target market I was looking for was more inclined to Instagram than Facebook. And so I thought, okay, and that's why I started with messages. I had nothing actually, but I just started with the messages initially. It was just a concept in my mind that I was building, but I
Wow.
created the account and I started with the messaging to start growing the sense of community. Okay, and people got into it even with nothing. I mean, I didn't have a single product or anything like that. It was just about the message. And so I started seeing the potential and how it could grow. Um, and and I mean, your books are phenomenal. The reality is the old ways of marketing are not relevant anymore. The world is on social media. People operate their lives from their phone. I hardly ever have to go into a bank. I can shop my groceries on my phone. Anything I want, I'll go on to Take a Lot. Why must I drive
Absolutely.
to a store? So we need to make use of this and tap into the fact that people are literally sitting glued to their devices. And so, how can we bring the messages to them on these devices that are consuming so much of their time without them having to pick up a journal or a magazine, industry magazine, or attend a conference, like you said, or get a flyer from somewhere? It's so quick and easy to share those messages on social media. And so I realized that that is the way to go if you want to build traction in terms of community development.
Wow. Wow. And does social media take up time?
For me, yes.
Because people don't realize that, you know what? And you have to be consistent. That's the other thing
Yes,
about it. You
correct.
It's the consistency that is actually more difficult. You will always have content, but to find the time to, constantly week in, week out. And we have not even touched base on paid advertising, nothing, just
Nothing.
normal posting.
Absolutely. It really does. Sometimes I find at the end of my day, my family is asleep, and I'm picking up my phone and thinking, "Oh gosh, it's almost 10 o'clock at night. Like I've been absent from the space. You need to put something there." But as you say, you could sit for 20 minutes crafting a post because you have to think of the right words. You know, how do you package this post and the message and so yeah, it does take up time to think about the content and how you're going to present it, and then to be responsive to engagements when there's post
Yeah.
engagements, because you can't just leave it there and people say something and you're not actually interacting with them. So that's the other part of it. It must be an interactive platform so that people feel a part of, of what you're putting out there. Yeah.
Dr. van Staden, there's someone sitting in Kenya right now who, as we have been having this chat, is or is watching this message or listening to it. They're busy going onto your Instagram pages and they're like, okay, let me connect with Essie. And they find some amazing products that you are having on your page. and they would want to now start ordering and connecting with your
Yeah.
brand, have you already started distributing your products outside of South Africa? If not, how soon will that be taking place for someone in Namibia, Botswana, who would be interested in getting some of the amazing products? Or another question, it's going to get to a point where your business now grows
Yes.
and you want to, grow it in other countries. Where are you at the current moment with regards to that side of your business?
So yeah, absolutely. The vision was never just for South Africa. The vision was always for Africa and potentially beyond. Africa's always been close to my heart. So I've actually had inquiries from Namibia and from people outside of South Africa. Um, Again, it comes down to just not having the time to find. When I did have an inquiry from Namibia, I did, and courier companies got quotes, and actually the person was quite prepared to pay what it costs to courier stuff to Namibia. But I will need a streamlined system to do that once we start shipping products outside of South Africa. And so that is in the next phase. I would hope that before the end of this year, that we are able to start sending products out to the rest of Africa. This is not a need just in South Africa. I know it's on the continent. And as optometry grows as a profession in other countries in Africa, then we have the opportunity to influence the growth of the profession, even in those countries. So it is in my plan for, I would say, the short to medium term, hopefully before the end of this year, to be able to ship beyond the borders of South Africa. Once the website is up and running and we've got all our systems and processes sort of running smooth for distribution in South Africa, my focus is then, expanding beyond the borders of this country. Um, so we
Wow.
grow easy. And I see the potential. Uh, my reservation has always just been, gosh, the time demand on myself. But now I need to find the right people who can then manage these things so that it doesn't put that kind of pressure on me. So I recognize that.
Do you find that with, because you created something unique, you know, um, do you find that you could have even actually started the business 3 years ago?
Absolutely. Most definitely. Um, Gosh, as I said, it was the right time because for me it was the pandemic. I had more time to sort of conceptualize, start putting things out there. But this was needed 5 years ago. It wasn't needed in 2020. Had we started much earlier, we could have been so much further. We could have averted so many people who potentially left the profession or went out and perpetuated a negative sentiment because they they didn't have the opportunity to be influenced or shown the potential that exists outside of their immediate spaces. So yes, it was late when it comes to we needed this a long time ago, but you know, I believe we came in uh, not later than was required anyway, and we're still able to influence change.
You have been mentioning the word influence, like every paragraph has the word influence in it. And so, a question that I have for you regarding that, if I compare, I mean, you and I are both following the same people or the same leaders or key opinion leaders globally. And I have found that some of the people that we are following uh, overseas, you will find that it's a 26-year-old and they're doing extraordinary things online that gives you the impression that this person has been in eye care for a
Absolutely.
long time, only to discover they just graduated last week for optometry.
Absolutely.
And so the whole thing of influencers or key opinion leaders within eye care globally has grown exponentially over the last 2 or 3 years. Do you find that South Africa lags behind or Africa lags behind? That when you start thinking of key opinion leaders, you're thinking of the person who specializes in contact lenses for the last 20 years, or the person who
Absolutely.
specializes in pediatrics for the last 20 years. But you
Yes.
don't have a lot of younger optometrists or younger leaders taking advantage of being influencers, being key opinion leaders, being brand ambassadors, if I can put it that way. Why do you think that is the case? Because I would have thought that your kind of business would have actually been done by a younger person and not necessarily, and when I say younger, I'm talking about a 22-year-old as opposed to Dr. van Staden, you still there? Everyone, I think Dr. van Staden got disconnected there. But what I was trying to put across as the message was the fact that we don't have a lot of influencers within the continent of Africa who are young people. And I think that's something that we can take advantage of going forward, that have a lot of, as a young person listening into this conversation, take advantage of the opportunities that social media has had, different media platforms. You can go on YouTube, you can go on Instagram, you can go on LinkedIn, you can go on Facebook, you can go on Twitter and create so much content. There we go, she's back. Hi, Dr. van Staden.
Apologies, Toby.
No problem.
Yes, now I thought my computer was dying and I was just about to go and plug in.
No. I'm glad you managed to think. If you don't mind, just turning your camera the other way, put it on landscape. There we go. I was saying when you got off, I just continue the conversation with everyone just to say to them that we live in a world today where there are so many opportunities for young people, young emerging leaders to take advantage of. They can create YouTube channels, be on Instagram, create so much content and focus on a particular topic of their choice or of their interest. Absolutely. And start building a brand around it. The question that I had for you just before you went off was, do you find that young people are not actually taking a lot of advantage with regards the becoming influencers, becoming key opinion leaders within the eye care industry on the continent? What's your thought around that?
Absolutely, Obi. I was blown away when I started on Instagram during the pandemic. And I think through your profile, you get suggestions of other accounts to follow. And that's when I started following these accounts of key opinion leaders in the States, for example. And I started seeing what they were doing. And I'm like, I was blown away. This is a whole new world for me. And as I said, I'm in a different generation. I certainly don't consider myself old, but I'm a generation away from my students. And I'm like, gosh, here's students in the States who are creating this awesome content, who've already built a global profile for themselves, who love what they do. And it's not taking away from yourself as an optometrist, but you creating a platform to share a different part of yourself, using that to share the eye care message in creative ways, to develop your own media platform or product line or whatever it is, really. I think we haven't even touched the surface of it in South Africa. I don't know if there's a reluctance to do that. I must say it does take a lot of boldness to put yourself out there. While I'm fairly confident I can stand and speak in public, but to put yourself on social media and to, I don't put a lot of myself on certainly on SEO, and on the optic, but just to start showing people a different side of yourself, I do think there's a certain level of vulnerability that comes with that. And perhaps, young optometrists or optometry students may be a bit intimidated. What will people think? Will they like what I do? But we need to move past that because there's so much uniqueness. You branded the singing optometrist, and that's where I saw, wow, we need to tap into this. Recently, I discovered one of our recent graduates, Anela Lugia, who does Nella Arts. She's doing a lot of eye arts. And so I said to her, I will help to promote your work. You use that platform. You love art. You're an optometrist. Use it to create your own brand, to grow something different. And you're still spreading this sort of eye message. So yes, absolutely. We haven't touched the surface. We haven't even scratched the tip of the iceberg in South Africa and in Africa. And I think, the world is there for the reaping.
Wow, wow. I think, look, as Africa Media, we are just a platform where we want to just see people from different parts of the continent coming together and growing as much as they possibly
Yes.
can. It's not centered around myself, Dr. Daryl Glover, or Dr. Imani Tareb. It's literally about building a community, like you said in the beginning.
Yes.
And so even with you, look at Africa Media, look at exactly how can you take advantage of the platform. We are open, we are flexible, because at the end of the day, it's a matter of making the profession better.
Yes.
And making each other better. So
yes.
Let's talk and see where can we collaborate, where can you take advantage of the platform, because the platform, when your business grows, IK is growing.
Absolutely.
And if your business is growing, it means the young people that you are working with are going to be able to do far more than the previous generation ever did. And that's how we're going to grow the industry.
Yes. Thank you so much for that, Obi. I mean, when you started Africa Media, and I thought, gosh, there's so much synergy in what you were doing, because my heart has always been for IK on Africa, on the African continent. And I saw how you just want to sort of profile people and spread this message of, growing the optometry profession, which is really what I also want to do. And I think there's a lot of synergy in what we do. And I'll be happy to explore ways that we can work together to do that, use our respective networks to do that. You have a network that may be separate to my network on the African continent. And yeah, I can link you up with other people and vice versa, but we're singing from the same hymn sheet. So we should collaborate, on future projects. So I'm open to that, and thank you for it. Yeah, I'll think of some suggestions. We can do that together.
Dr. van Staden, what you're doing is for the IK industry is absolutely phenomenal, and we wish you all the success in the world. And where can people reach you? Where can people connect with you? People who have been inspired by your conversation. And here's a thought. Last year, through our other company, we did a Women in IK campaign, right?
Yes.
And we were featuring different ladies, female leaders from all over the world. And we get to be on the back end of it with regards to the statistics. And I've never said this to anyone, but with regards your particular post, when we shared your video clip, yours had double the number of the person who had the most views and engagement on their post. So if the one leader had 1,000, for example, who had the most compared to everyone else, your particular video clip across our Vision Straight platforms, when we were doing it via Vision Straight, had double the number of people that the leader with the most engagement had. So it's something to think about, that you have this amazing ability to connect with audiences beyond optometry. So something to keep at the back of your mind as you build your business, that there's an opportunity there for you to be able to expand beyond IK and actually see how can you build your business within the healthcare community and beyond the healthcare community. So it's a challenge to you, but it's something that I picked up when we were looking at the stats to see the impact that we had, or the reach that we had with regards to the Women in IK campaign. And it was to our surprise, not to our surprise, but to our, it was very interesting, if I can put it that way, how many people you got to connect with and that connected with your message compared to all the other leaders.
That is phenomenal. I'm so humbled by that, Obi. And what you're saying is just confirmation of what God has been showing me, and I know that the next step is beyond optometry for AC, as well as for my profile as a health professional. Actually, yesterday I hosted the first Conversations in Health Science series, which I really want to take to a podcast internationally. I have no idea how to do that, by the way, but that's what I feel has been dropped in, in my spirit, that I need to use. Again, it comes with this natural gift God has given me to communicate, to facilitate discussions, to create engagement. Because in my current role, I'm an academic leader for teaching and learning for the School of Health Sciences. So now I'm influencing physiotherapy, occupational therapy, pharmacy, dental therapy. So my role has already moved beyond optometry within the institution. And I know that as a professional and as a leader and as an influencer in health sciences, that the next step for me is to influence health professions in general. And I, as I said, there's already been, I've already seen opportunities to do that. I want to see out, this almost a handover, if I can say, to the next generation who's going to run with the optometry bit that I can just manage. But I want to take the same level of inspiration and what we do to health professions in general, and then create a sense of community within the health professions. Dentists may think they're better than optometrists. Doctors think they're better than, occupational therapists. Yet we all healthcare workers building a health system and working for the betterment of the health of people and to inspire them to love their professions and to grow with it. So yeah, that's the next stage for me.
You need to talk to Dr. Darrell Glover, because he runs through Defocus Media. He runs the biggest eye care podcast channel all over the world, to an extent whereby there's about 4 or 5 other podcast channels that run under their own podcast channel. And a lot of people don't know this, but how African Media actually started, it was 3 years before we officially launched last year. And it was a podcast channel under Defocus Media. And we only did 2 podcasts, one with Mariki Silius and one with Annelies van Staden. And the audio on both of those podcasts was completely horrible. I was cutting a lot. It was my first time doing podcasts, and I had absolutely no experience. But the engagement that it created was so much that we sat down with Dr. Darrell Glover one day and we decided, you know what, let's create African Media to be its own company and not be under
that is fantastic. So I will chat to him. Thank you. Because that's what I feel, but I have no clue where to start. And perhaps, it's just going to be easiest to slot in and, people will have the expertise to guide and mentor you and develop from there.
Because it's all about, with the cell phones that we have nowadays, it's just a matter of getting the correct microphones and audio systems. That if you've got a good microphone and audio system, there's so much that you will be able to do. I mean, the last time we had you on, we were not even doing this podcast via video. And recently, he made me aware. He said, Obi, invest in a camera, invest in a sound system that you attach to your laptop, so that when you're doing the video podcast, so it's definitely consider, but I know you're going to do very well. And so where can people find you, Dr. van Staden?
Sorry, say that again, Obi. I didn't hear
that. Where can people connect with you?
Okay, so people can connect with me on my Instagram. I'm under Diane van Staden, D_I_van Staden. Note the I theme across all that I do. Or by SC, I still manage the page. So e.s.y2020 on Instagram or at SC2020.
You muted Dr. van Staden. Dr. van Staden. You mute? Dr. van Staden?
Yeah.
I think you got
Yes,
muted there.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, you were still saying you were giving us the Instagram handle for SC.
Yeah, it's e.s.y2020 on Instagram, and on Facebook it's at ESY2020.
Ah, fantastic, fantastic. Thank you so much. We wish you all the best. You're an incredible leader, and it's so interesting and so amazing to watch you navigate optometry, you know, what you're doing in the classroom, what you're doing in the academic environment, what you're doing in the profession as a whole, but most importantly as well, how you have started incorporating the business aspects of eye care. It's absolutely amazing, and we wish you all the success in the world.
Thank you so much, Obi. Really appreciate it, and all the best to you. We'll chat again soon.
Definitely. Bye-bye.
Bye.